Brilliance Audio presents Sugarland by Tammy Lynne Stoner, performed by Donna Postel. My first work day at the Imperial State Prison Farm for Men was February 8, 1923. I wore a dress that made me look like a curvy brown sack, and I couldn't stop burping up the oatmeal I'd had for breakfast. The kind folks at the prison helped me find a place to live, which I called my shanty. It came with minimal furnishings, a mostly green love seat as comfortable as burlap, a single bed that poked a little, and what they called a bistro table with 2 sitting chairs, leaving me wondering what other kind of chairs there were. They also paid the first month's rent. The penitentiary was an easy 10-minute walk away, up a street with clean, new telephone poles running down the center. Folks called the area Guard Town to separate it from the real town of Sugarland. Most of the houses in Guard Town had trees out front, and the street even had street lights, though I did miss the windmills of my hometown, Midland, Texas. As I walked down those clean, paved streets that came straight from under a child's Christmas train set, my nerves jumped more than a grasshopper on a griddle. On my training day, I'd had a tour of the prison and met the warden, a big-chested man with precisely trimmed sideburns, and a spattering of random folks unhitching horses outside. But that was it by way of preparation. Truth be told, I hadn't thought much about possible dangers of prison life until I got closer to the white walls of the penitentiary. They looked like the walls of heaven, if heaven were an institution to house murderers and thieves, which it may be, since we are all murderers and thieves in our own way. A horribly freckled guard, with a sweat-stained tan shirt, walked me past the meager wooden gate, the only fencing of any sort around the prison. That might seem strange to folks these days, but back then, there were very few places to run, so there was no real need for a fence. Still, convicts did run, and when they did, the guards released the dogs and hunted them down on horseback, catching or shooting most of the escapees, who didn't drown in the Brazos. We walked through the gate, across a wide patch of dry grass, and into the kitchen building, which, as the guard explained, connected the 3 main tanks, or dormitories, of the prison. One for whites, one for blacks, and one for Mexicans. "Stay here, I'll get Beauregard." I stood with my back against the raw wood, which let off a hot, musty smell. Cigarette smoke, thicker than swamp fog, hung in the air. I tried to look at ease. A few minutes later, a man with a waxed mustache, who was both broad-shouldered and skinny, sauntered up as if he was going to ask me to dance. His white kitchen shirt had no name on it. "I'm Beauregard," he said, holding out his hand to me after he wiped the sweat off on his pants. "I lead the kitchen staff and whatnot. Follow me." He grunted to the freckled guard, who didn't care much about us. "Don't worry, we're allowed to smile inside the kitchen proper, even though it is quite literally frowned upon out here." Beauregard had a charming look to him, like a man who could skip over every puddle during a rainstorm. Maybe it was that mustache of his, all curled and comical and confident. And he smelled nice, which was something in that place. The hallway we walked down was just big enough for 2 adults to walk side by side. At the end sat another beat-up door. When Beauregard opened it, I felt like we had entered a secret chapter of Alice in Wonderland. A dinged-up nickel counter with absolutely nothing on it stretched the length of the long wall opposite the stove. Giant, oversized pots sat on the floor. Utensils were hooked to the wall with chains, as if otherwise they might spring to life and start tap dancing. Seemed bleach was the cleaning method, as evidenced from the overwhelming stench in the air.